All right, it's 4:15, and we'll call the meeting to order, and we'll ask Commissioner Tony Smith to lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we want to thank Thee for another wonderful day. Lord, bless this group of people as we're here this afternoon to do the business for our county so it's equal and fair for every individual in our county. Lord, bless our troops that are fighting for our rights, our freedom, our current way of life that we have. Lord, bless the people that are sick, need your help, need your guidance, give them a helping hand. In thy name we pray, amen.
All right, thank you for that. Everybody's present, thank God for that. And motion to approve the minutes from the April 28, 2026. Second. All right, motion second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we're ready for public comment. Does anybody in the audience want to make a comment regarding the agenda? Okay, I don't hear or see anybody. We'll move on to the new business. So the first one's solid waste, and I know she said she will have to leave shortly.
We've added our last digital ad for this year to encourage Adopt a Highway. This may encourage people to get more involved in trying to keep the roads close to their property clean. We feel like this has been beneficial in targeting a different approach to trash on our county roads and highways. We've had a lot of good response about the ads that have been placed, which were right there at Kroger's or right next to Kroger's. We're in the process of taking old records to archives and making room for records that we'll be pulling this year. Bedford County will again be counted as one of the state counties to participate in the Great Tennessee Cleanup through Keep Tennessee Beautiful, or Keep America Beautiful. Keep Tennessee Beautiful tries every year to have all 95 counties participate in some type of cleanup or beautification project. Plant trees, flowers, clean up river, illegal dump sites, etc. The centers will be closed on Memorial Day. I guess everyone knew that. Our litter crew has been doing a great job in trying to keep our county roads clean. I want to send a special thanks to the Sheriff's Department for allowing them to go out to help. Solid waste will be scrapping rusted out six front yard boxes. We have 23 of those and 7 compactor receiver boxes, as it's more costly to try and rebuild with the price of metal, and the price of metal at the FPT right now is pretty high. We're still having problems at El Bethel Center with people wanting to put wood of all types. We are not permitted to take construction waste nor pallets, and this was initially set up to just take small DIY projects, 2x4, some just small scrap. The attendants do try to do their best to police the situation, but the people just really don't follow the proper procedures. This month, our recycling revenue was $17,234.25, and the recycled tonnage was 111.01 tons. There was an extra metal check included in that. That's why it bumped up. The landfill disposal expense, $57,091.89, and 998.11 tons were taken to the landfill. Any questions? Thank you.
Questions for Diane? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, HR is up next.
Good afternoon. The report from the HR office is specific to the April data that you have before you. In April, the HR office saw 9 new hire onboards. Those were all budgeted positions. Primarily, those were corrections officers. We had a couple through the Sheriff's Department, one being a deputy and one for dispatch. We had highway, and we had some seasonal at the election that we were starting to show up from the primary. So terminations, resignations, we only had one, and that was just a career change, offboarding, no issue there. Retirement was specific to the Sheriff's Department, and we had a transfer from one department to E911. So our job postings for talent recruitment, right now we're actively seeking corrections officers, which we keep up year-round. And then also we have an opportunity for a full-time LPN with our health department that just opened this past Friday with that office. And that is a salaried grant funded position through the state contract with the health department. So they're considered a county employee, but their salary is reimbursed by the state. That is an annual grant, I believe, that we apply for. So it's renewed every year. And we have recently filled some corrections officer positions, a full-time school resource officer position, and now we have filled 2 dispatcher positions. And so it's been standard protocol on HR projects specific to the HR office, anything from working on updating job descriptions as recommended. I had a text amendment request for a personnel policy that I assisted with. And then I also am working on developing a continuing education policy specific to that grant for the health department for those employees, because there's a line item in there for that. So we're working through that right now. Any questions for me? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, any other comments for HR? All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
All right, Archives was not able to be here tonight. She had an appointment. And is our owner rep here? Yeah, so we're ready.
You have our report in front of you. The only thing I would want to bring up is we've had 5 inches of rain the last 2 weeks. So the completion dates for parking and asphalt have been moved about 7 days on the surplus and juvenile. Other than that, the interior schedule is still as we have printed. We have started completing vestibules. I sent Dr. Garrett some pictures. Aiken is completed. Community elementary is completed. We'll be going to the middle school next week. The week after that, we'll do the 2 schools at Cascade. Then we'll move to East Side, Thomas, and then completing at Liberty. So all those will be completed before school starts back.
Okay, we got questions for while he's here? Buddy? Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, we're ready for monthly reports.
Okay, you have a copy of your monthly financial report. I don't really have anything unusual to report because the budget amendment that we're about to do in a few minutes will take care of any anomalies. And you have an analysis of taxes, and I might point out property tax collections. This is the same time last year versus now. We've collected $844,909 more. And most of that was budgeted, so even though it's an increase, we budgeted that increase. Prior year collections are $214,650 ahead of last year. And this is in the trustee's office, and you will see the clerk and master is down $155,607 less than last year because some of that money was collected in the trustee's office before it was turned over. Sales tax collections are $864,000 ahead of the same time last year. And the last one is mineral severance on the last page, and we are $31,624 ahead of last year. And you also have a report that shows expenses, anything that is over 83%, which is the average, is highlighted in red. And some of these items, if they go over 100%, then we've got an amendment that will take care of that. That's my report.
Okay, comments or questions regarding this? Okay, we're ready for EMS.
For emptying our dumpster last week. Our dumpster somehow got full in the middle of but other than that, I don't have anything to add to the reports unless anybody has any questions on them.
Okay, questions for EMS? Sure.
Are we fully staffed?
We are currently, I believe we are about to have one opening, but other than that, we are just one. Yeah.
Just one's a lot better than a bunch, right? All right, thank you for that. Yeah, all right, so do we need a motion to approve the reports, sir? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, now we're ready for, I got resolution for the 2 nonprofits. You want to speak on that, Robert?
Okay, last month we had a request for $1,500, and it was 2 nonprofits, and You were asking if that was 1,500 apiece or it was divided. It is 750 each. It's for the Juneteenth celebration. And due to this being nonprofits, then we have to have a resolution in order to send them the money.
And we're treating this like an event, so this is not necessarily asking for a reoccurring nonprofit. Like some of them are actually getting funds otherwise, but this is specific to this event. But as he said, we have to have a resolution because it's a nonprofit, so. Commissioner Johnson.
Where would this funding come from?
It'll come from the tourism money.
Anybody else? Okay, now this will have to go to the commission. We'll need a motion in a second, then we. Okay, motion second. Open for more discussion or clarification. Everybody understand what we're doing? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you for that. Now we're ready for budget amendment. I think the first one's education, number 4.
This is the Board of Education amendment. This was approved at their last meeting. And if you'll look at page 1, you'll see the highlights. We had a Gear Up grant, additional funds, some TISA on behalf payments, refunds and reimbursements. We had a small reduction in fund balance of $3,500. And on page 2, you'll see where that was spread through the budget. So the detail is behind that.
Okay, so this will need to go to the commission. We need a motion to approve the.
Move to approve.
All right, motion second. We're open for discussion or clarification. Questions? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, now we're ready for budget amendment number 4 for county.
Okay, on the county side, we have, page 1, we have donations that we received. A lot of this is for animal control. We had a state grant for EMS of $30,000. We had some additional revenue, some refunds and reimbursements. We moved some money from the restricted fund balances for archives and EMS. And then on page 2 and 3, you will see where that was spread through the budget. We had some department transfers that were in there. And then also, we had a couple of other amendments beyond that. If you'll look at the next section, there's a separator page. This is the highway fund. We had a department transfer in the highway fund. And then in the debt service fund, we had some interest on the E911 bond that we had to post, which is Fund 151. And the last one, this is the capital projects fund, and we had a department transfer there, moving some money from one department to the other. And that's it.
Okay, so we need a motion to send this to the commission. All right, motion. We need a second. All right, second, motion second. Any more discussion or clarification? Again, questions, anybody? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, now we're ready for surplus. I think we got some Board of Education surplus.
The big stack is schools, so.
That's board. Okay, so now, that doesn't have to go to the, okay, but we need a motion, a second to approve it, right? Okay, we need a motion to approve the, all right. All right, motion second. Open for questions, discussions. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, and then we have, solid waste has some scrap metal that goes to surplus, I guess. And this one needs to go to the commission, so we need. And send to the commission, and second to that, right? Okay, any comments or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Okay, so the next item is talking about the tax freeze. I know some folks are here specifically for that. We've got documents to hand out to you regarding the information they were asked finance to put together.
Okay, this is the fiscal note. If commissioners want to come up and get a copy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot about the mic. I just want to say, after the last commission meeting with the tax freeze and the last meeting we had here, I asked a lot of questions, and so did Dr. Garrett. We asked a lot of questions about what we had go on, so I requested, after the last commission meeting, I requested for Commissioner Maddox and Councilmember Blevins to come and sit down with me and try to help answer some of my questions where we could talk about this right here. So I want to say that they showed up this morning. We've done about an hour and a half of discussion. And I want to say I appreciate them coming in and helping answer those questions with me.
All right, and Tanya, do you want to hand out, or you want us to hand out that data sheet you have, or you want to wait and see what the questions are going to be, or? Okay, so while they're handing those out, I do have one, yes, and I think all the body up here got Tanya's page. All right, and so y'all have the page that Robert worked on, right? So while they're handing that out, let's let Robert explain and go over the 2 pages that he prepared. As you remember from the last commission, there was motion and second for him to create a fiscal note for this project. So we'll get that started, and then we'll take debate and conversation, and if you'd come up to the mic, that way we'll make sure we get it recorded.
I didn't plan on debate. Okay, what this is, the first page is the fiscal note on employee cost, and I did this over a 10-year period, and we took a base salary with 5 years experience, because that's from our salary chart. We normally can hire someone with 10 years of experience and they get half of that, so I use 5 years. They also get certifications, longevity pay after 2 years. All their benefits are included, and also annual insurance, which is a single coverage that employees get. I increased the salaries by 3% a year, and I also increased the insurance by 10% a year, because even this year it's 10.5. So I figured if we do 10, then that would be pretty close. So that gives you a total out there. I did 1 employee, then I doubled it for the second employee, because it's my understanding you're looking at 1 possibly in trustee's office, 1 in the property assessor office. So the total cost for the first year will be $115,899, and then that projects out higher because of the raises that I told you about. This does not include operational costs such as computers, postage, vehicle fuel, vehicles, insurance, vehicle maintenance cost, any of that. Page 2 is where I projected out if, in the past, we've had at least 2 tax increases in a 10-year period. So we took the average of a tax increase from the last 2 that we had. It's 30.5 cents. So I put that in year 1. Now it could be year 2, but this tax freeze doesn't start until there's a tax increase. So I just assumed year 1, and then you can see how it projects forward. Year 5, we projected the second increase on top of that first one, so I just doubled it. And then you can see the loss of revenue. The first year would be $46,000 if there was a tax increase this year or this coming year. So I totaled that by 10 years. That'd be your loss of revenue. Then I added your administrative costs from the first page, and then that gives the total impact. So that was my fiscal note. Some of this information was generated from the Census Bureau, where we got levels of income, and then also the population, the number of seniors. That was projected out with the use of AI. And this is only the additional people. This is not including the tax part that we're already doing. So
Tax relief.
yeah, this
Does
is
not
not
include
including
tax
tax
relief.
relief. But some of those people, if you do this, they will need to be picked up on that too. So like I said, this is just additional people we feel like would jump on after tax relief. So anyway, that's the fiscal note I came up with. That is correct. That is correct. And then I had AI projected out. So, and that's like I said, a lot of this is based on Census Bureau information.
The AI generated for Bedford using census data says that there should be 338 seniors that are in the price range or in the home income level between 38.7 and 43.7. And then it asks the question, how many of those would be homeowners? Okay, it's 338. It says we're 60 in that 65 plus, and so it projects that 270 of them would be homeowners and would be in that range. Now that's separate from tax relief. Now downstream you already got 500 or 600, whatever the number is, of tax relief people that are already in the program, and it's my understanding that the tax relief people automatically would qualify for tax freeze, but tax freeze would potentially bring on, again, this data suggests up to 270 new people into the fold if you were to adopt tax freeze. Yeah, yeah. Whatever the tax relief program. What's the number right now, Tanya?
The number today is 509.
Yeah, in tax relief. So. Yeah, right. Tax relief, just low income elderly.
These
Yeah.
numbers that you projected out is for the additional
Correct.
seniors that would qualify for the tax freeze.
Right.
That's correct.
That's the assumptions that we're making there. Okay, now, oh yeah, you guys up here with me, make sure you hit your button. And those that want to speak about it from the floor, if you come up to the podium so we can make sure we get you recorded. Yes, please.
Could you just clarify the motion someone is seeking today? Is it the commission? What motion, what are we needing to think about so we know what questions to ask for today from this body?
Right. My recollection from the commission floor that night was to send it to the send it to the finance committee, asking the finance director to generate a cost estimate or fiscal note as to what it would cost to provide the service, and then to send it back at the very next commission meeting to the floor for discussion, debate, approval, rejection, whatever it is that the full body would choose to do. Now, what Robert has not done in his fiscal note is we did not pick up the actual quarter of a vehicle actually that was originally alluded to by the assessor's office, or the operating expenses, and some of those were reflected in some earlier numbers that Tanya's office had, the trustee's office had put in at one point. So the 115,899 would purely just be two positions, one added to trustee's office, one added to assessor's office. The implementation, the operation, those costs are not factored into that note. So clearly the number will be some larger, but I assume there's going to be some debate whether you need a position or not.
So our question would be if we made a motion that we agreed on the amount and to send back to the commission. So if we have any questions on, is his numbers correct? Is that where we are?
You certainly can do that, and I think that this body can send it back to the commission without a recommendation. We're simply just fulfilling what the request of the commission was, and that was to give them a number that had been looked at or generated by the financial structure of the county government because there have been a lot of predictors, and including some of what we are talking about that AI generated is predictors talking about numbers of people potentially touched and what those numbers are. Now, a quarter of a vehicle, if it's a $100,000 vehicle, it'd be $25,000. If it's a $25,000 vehicle, it'd be whatever that half is. You follow me? So there's some things that are, again, not reflected in this document that's in front of you, but that really, in my view, of our responsibility tonight was to get it out in the domain for conversation, let everybody hear it, see it, and explain how we arrived at the number that we're giving, and then it can be debated from the floor or from here tonight as to whether they think that number should be higher, lower, or indifferent regarding it. Does that answer?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, I think I'm with Dr. Garrett. Basically, what our discussion is just on the two additional employees that the commission sent back to us to get the numbers of how much those two employees was going to cost. That's what our discussion is today.
I think, and Robert speak for himself, but we discussed it in advance because of the Financial Management Committee's role in this and being the chair. But the one thing that would be certainly an absolute reoccurring cost would be personnel. And so that's why he zeroed in on that and not necessarily weighed in on whether we thought it was a $60,000 vehicle, a $20,000 vehicle. You need $10,000 for postage or computers in your office or a new desk. We didn't touch any of that. We're looking at the one thing that's going to absolutely reoccurring impact the budget if they go forward. And that's how we arrived at that. Do you agree with that statement?
Right. I didn't know how many computers they would need, if they could use existing computers. I didn't know about the vehicle, so I did not project any of that for that reason.
Well, being at the last commission meeting, I think the way I understood the motion was that all they put in your plate to come back with is the numbers for the additional personnel to put the program in place. So that's what I'm asking. That's what our discussion is today, is just about those two employees, not the tax freeze as a whole. It's just the two employees.
Right.
Well,
I don't.
As a fiscal note, I think you've got to look at the loss of revenue when you freeze the taxes too, because you're not going to get revenue from that point forward.
And that's the second page. And so do you want to explain that one?
Well, like I said, I just took, if you did a tax increase in year one based on the population that was projected, then this is what it would be, and then it would go up each year based on the population increases. And I figured a 30.5 cent average increase, and that's twice during the period. Now, you could shift that to the next year or the next year. I don't know when there's going to be a tax increase, so I just made it kind of even. I mean, but in the past, we've had at least two in a 10-year period.
And the number of pennies would be different today than they were then because of the penny value today is 214,000, where back then it might have been 180, 175,000. So again, we have the ability to do anything there except really ask AI to pull back what the actual numbers were from the predictors, and that's how he arrived at that number. We didn't suggest that they ought to be a 30-cent increase in the property tax. It was working off of the averages when it looked back over the 10-year window. You agree with that?
That's correct.
Could we get a clarification, because what I hear from the people is that this has been put out as a tax freeze for all seniors, and it's not all seniors, and I think that's relevant in how many employees that we need. Could someone really clarify for us who will qualify, which seniors will qualify? In my opinion, when we look at what the salaries will be and how many we need, that is important, as well as what would be the implications if we expanded it to include more seniors. I'm all for helping seniors, but I'm not for penalizing people for working hard all their life and having a pension. For example, if two retired teachers were in one household, they wouldn't qualify with the current stipulations. What would it cost for all seniors to benefit, or for it to be a little more, expand those qualifications? Because right now it is not for all seniors, just limited amount of seniors. And what would be the implication if we expanded it to include more seniors?
Right. So I think the most appropriate person to speak would be the trustee, because she's the one responsible to administer this program as far as asking who qualifies, who doesn't, and expansion. Now, I believe the reason we settled on the window that we're currently looking at, the relief caps out at the 38, whatever the number was. The proposal that was being discussed was to raise it some, though, to the number that was there. That was not set by Robert or I. And so, but that number can go as high as, was it 60,000 something? 63,000, which obviously brings more people into the fold, which would again bring more into the thing. But Tanya, you're going up to the, I think you got to come up there and explain the who qualifies and who doesn't. But certainly, just because you're 65, you don't qualify. And particularly the tax burden will absolutely have to be redirected to the other ones that are paying at whatever point that starts to be. But if you go 5 years and don't raise the property tax, then you won't have the tax burden shift except for the cost to have the program, this reoccurring numbers that he's referring to. But the moment that you raise the property tax and then going forward with the freeze, you'll also have then tax burden that's laid on top of operating costs, which again is what the second page reflects there. I'm not trying to misspeak. You got it.
Yes, I just think that the public needs clarity, because I've seen many places that it says tax freeze for all seniors, and I don't think that that's the case. I want transparency and clarity on who would qualify and what would it take to get more people involved, more people who would qualify.
The the tax relief is the state program, and there's 4 classifications, and elderly falls with disabled, veterans, and then veterans widower. So the elderly and disabled has to fall under a income cap. That's how they have to qualify. Right now, it's at $38,470. But if they adopt the freeze is going to be $43,780, which is a little over, I think, 5,000 difference. So we are definitely the 507 elderly. And like I said, veterans do not have to claim an income, but the elderly does have to claim an income, and there is a cap on it. And they have to requalify every year, and we have to check the income, all income.
Is it everyone in the household?
Yes, if there's a spouse, or if there is a child, an older child, anyone else that has got income in that household that has to be claimed, or if it's on the deed.
What is the other amount that goes with this tax freeze for the top amount of how many seniors can get in that program?
Now, we're talking freeze. Okay, so to qualify, they can make as much as $43,780. So that's the difference in the $38,470. So we are, all that's on there, 507, would already be approved to go to the freeze. And we're projecting with that number, just policing this year after year, that we're comfortable with 200, but we know that it's going to be greater than.
But what I was asking is not the 43 number. I heard a 63 number.
That is you can also adopt the greater number, which is now 63,000.
And how many seniors does that make the qualifications to hit that number versus the 700? Do you know what that number is?
Mark, I don't. I know just at the 43 that we are looking at 200 to 300. I mean, we're projecting around 200, but you know, that's a larger number.
How many employees would it take to go up to the 63?
It would over double the workload to go up, and that income at 63,000 is a lot more money than any of our county employees usually make, or that would be pretty devastating to the county budget to have that type of increase.
Yeah, I understand that part. But my part is, I know at the last meeting when me and Dr. Garrett was asking all 5,000 questions that we asked that day, I remember hearing a number of 1,800 sort of would fit into the higher bracket.
That was from City Council, Josh, that was his number, to add about 1,800 on the 63,000, 1,800
So you didn't
more.
give Councilmember Blevins that number then? Is what I'm saying. So
No.
okay. So that 1,800 number is not a valid number for us to be looking at on what we was told then.
No.
And we didn't run those numbers because the number they specifically asked for was the 43,780. Now, I would tell you, I know you're not looking at this, and we certainly will share it, but it predicted in the first year, as I told you, there would be, now this was based on the 43,000, the predictor was it'd be 270 households or that would qualify. In year 2, it's 297. In year 3, it's 327. At the end of 10 years, it's 405. So it's going to continue to grow even at this low number. So again, you would have to believe that if you raise the threshold and you put more on the front end, it's also going to grow going forward there as well. And again, not to say that is or isn't, but it should be a mathematical certainty that it would just grow exponentially in relation to that.
Right. I'm like Dr. Garrett, though. If we're going to help seniors, and this is a program we got to get in, I want to help as many seniors as we can, or for the commission to look at helping as many as you can, whether it's 700 or if it's 1,800. But I was asking about the number 1,800 because that number has been very valid put out there that if it hits that 63,000 threshold, it's 1,800 is what the number would be. But since you said it's not there, so we really don't have a number to look at going at that higher echelon.
Correct.
I assume you're saying your office hasn't validated that number. I'm sure he got that number from some compilation
did you
from
go-
somewhere. Where did your number come from on
Did it
the
come from the
63,000?
comptroller?
Whenever you told us 63,000 would generate whatever he said the number, somebody come up and, and answer that. I think because you're asking that question. So let's,
Yeah, that came, our US Census number of households in the county is 4,600 senior households. That was an estimate based on median senior income is about right at that 60-some thousand number for the household. So that'd be about half of those households would qualify, but not everybody obviously owns a house at that age or whatever. So that was just a rough estimate of about 2,300 senior households would qualify in that income level. However, not all of those are gonna live and own a house. Some of them may be in a assisted living. They may live with family, whatnot. So that's where that came from. It was a census generated number. So.
I have a question that was shared. We had information shared by today. I think it was shared online as well with counties and what their tax freeze programs consisted of, but it did not list. I'm interested if you know which counties, what the qualifications were, because I think that's important to the people. What are the qualifications in the counties that were shared? Did they do 42,000? Did they do 63,000? What did they do?
If it's okay, I've got an updated sheet that has better information as far as that. That answered that question. I had that question.
any of you, if you just come to the mic so that we get on there correctly with that. Now, I think we pushed that out to the, unless you've got an updated beyond that, we pushed out today from Anita. Is this a different one?
This is updated that answers her specific question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this has. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I was sitting in the back and I just happened to have my laptop with me because I had to answer somebody else on another matter outside of the county. And with all of that said, I keyed in to Google Gemini how many people in Bedford County that have incomes between 43,000 and 63,000 that are over 65. And it told me that roughly about, they said, let's see, what did it say? 700 to 850 have that household have that income that are seniors over 65. And of that, how many are homeowners? And it estimated that in that group, let me get down to it, I think it was about 700 would be homeowners. So just want to give you that data point, whatever that's worth.
So the 700 plus the 270 that was rung out between 38 and 43. So you're heading about 1,000.
Yeah.
If you went to it.
700 to 850 households in the 43 to $63,000 range.
That
yields roughly 560 to 700 homeowners. 560 to 700.
So you're on about 1,000 on top of the 500 currently, I believe, under those numbers, which will put you about 1,500.
Yes.
Right.
For whatever that's worth.
Okay, I'm lost there because I'm not doing the same thing I done last time. So just don't worry about that. But I'm just getting confused because he just run an AI number, and that AI number was 700.
On top of the...
No, he didn't say anything about on top. He said how many total seniors.
He was between $2 figures. That was,
but
that was homeowners.
He changed the parameter though. He said between 47 and 63.
Okay, so
originally we did
to
between,
go up to the higher amount. Okay, that's what I want to make sure that is what his
between
number was.
38.
So we're around 1,000.
Yeah, between 38 and 43, we already are
so we're at
accepting the
1,000.
270. Yeah, so he can change that parameter. Go ahead.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so his number off Gemini is roughly 1,500 total between all of the programs. To Dr. Garrett's question real quick, and let me explain this. Commissioner Epperson did this work, and I really want to say how much I appreciate that. She wasn't able to be here for this meeting. She reached out to elected officials across the state that have been on this program for 10 years or more and got from them what it's costing their county. In their words, you should have all received, did they distribute the emails in addition to the
Yes.
summary?
Well,
So-
I think so. I sent out what she asked me to send out this morning.
Okay, yeah, so you should have raw emails as well somewhere in your packet, but this is a summary in 2 pages of what those emails say. And this is 6 counties on the program. I want to clarify, the reasoning for this is not to throw shade at our offices. On the contrary, I would put our trustee and our assessor up against any in the whole state of Tennessee. We've got a great trustee, we've got a great assessor coming in. This is just to show what some other offices that are currently operating this program, what it's taking them as far as personnel, dollars, what they're actually spending, and they've been in the program more than 10 years, so they have experience with it. So that's why she gathered this information. And the one that I just gave you answers Dr. Garrett's question, which is Rowan County, they've got the lower income limit. If you go to page 2, everybody on page 2 is at the higher income limit. The bigger counties like Montgomery, Williamson, and Rutherford. So, yeah.
And while you're right there at the thing, we talked the other day. Last time when you were up here, you were saying the city was certainly moving forward with adopting this. The last time we spoke, you said, well, wait a minute, we're going to wait and see what you do. So what's your position now as the city? Are y'all waiting to see whether we do it, or
We
are you
did.
moving on?
We passed a motion last meeting where we said we would wait and see where the county's at, but we did authorize city staff to go ahead and talk to the offices in the county and get some of the same numbers that we're discussing this evening, just to see if the council's willing to get on board with helping.
Okay, so at this time, the council's not made a decision
Has
whether
not,
you're
has
in or
not
out.
made a decision, and I'm just 1 out of 6 votes, so yeah.
And I also want to ask too, because I know that discussion would come up last time, because the city clerks that used to, like Shanna used to do the tax reliefs and do all that stuff at the tables, all that work on the city side is going to be moved to the trustee's office, correct?
If
That's what the agreement, I think, was
That's
talking about, right?
That's what I would
Yeah.
hope, is that we could just pay and have it handled in one
Right.
office, but that's not been decided. We
Right,
we
yeah.
currently handle that on the city side, and we may continue to. I can't make that decision.
Right, and I'm not asking you to, I'm just saying that will be part of the discussions once y'all bring all this to the table, that y'all will look at reimbursing the county for the trustee's office doing y'all's part of this leg.
That would be the 2 alternatives. We could continue to handle it ourselves at our cost, or if we could come to an agreement with the trustee's office, we would pay their costs. And that would have to be approved, though, by the council.
So
Yeah.
I'm trying to clarify it
Yeah.
for myself, and I guess the listening public too, and everybody in here. You just said, if the city decides their clerks is gonna do that part, then I don't think the county's gonna want you to put any money towards.
Well, no, if we were
Congress
doing the
office to
work,
do that. If
we're
you're gonna do the
not gonna do
work-
the work and send the check.
Exactly,
So, yeah.
so y'all
Yeah.
were gonna look at it both ways.
Both
then?
ways,
Okay,
yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
want, just to
Yeah,
clarify.
and staff
Okay.
was authorized to do that at the last meeting, so.
Now, I thought the state law said that the trustee's office has to be the one that does the program. You can't do it independently, can you?
There's 7 cities that are doing it without their county, so honestly, I've not talked to those 7 cities, so I can't say that for
Tanya's
certain.
behind you. Did I misunderstand the comptroller?
No, because those are the larger cities, and a lot of those cities fall under the county. Like, I think it's 32 cities, but a lot of those cities are 6 to 8 cities that fall under the county, and I think the county they work something out there. Everything, yeah.
Honestly don't know. Burns is the
Honestly,
smallest.
a lot of these counties, they govern a little different anyway, so. But I wanna clear something up, because, there was a lot of question about the 63,000. I was never asked to figure that number, so I just want that clear on there. The other thing is, these counties that have been reached out to, they were not our surrounding counties that could be really true numbers. Most of these counties, you go look at them, are very large counties with very large staff. I see that Coffee County's not on here. That was one that was reached out to. But Anderson County, Bradley County, look at the population of these counties. Montgomery County, Williamson County, Rutherford County. I mean, that speaks for itself. So those are not really good comparisons and on the staff. The other thing I wanted to say before I sat down is the trustee's office is certainly will do anything to step up, support, work hard for whatever you decide on. It is about the elderly. So, but we do need to understand on the funding of this, how this program is implemented and the seriousness of the process and the accountability to reconcile all of this. And it's gonna fall back on the hands with the assessor's office. And we would have to work very close in calculating those numbers. They have to be true numbers. Now with the tax relief, we just police and follow. If we adopt the freeze, that is, we are totally, solely audit, internal controls, segregation of duties. We will be held accountable, audited very, very differently. The study that I handed out, and there's pretty well just looking at the AI, my numbers, and if you'll flip to the back of it, because it's going to be coded with colors that kind of is easy for the eye to look. But before I sit down, I just want to show you that I did. On the 25 is going to show the total taxes, the net impact, and then it's going to show the total assessment money-wise on the 2026 taxes. The impact for 509 elderly at the time this year with the 5-year reappraisal, taxes went up a total of $34,433.61 across the board of that 509 elderly. Down below to the left side, you're going to look at 200 more added. And what I did, the office, we took every assessment of these 509 elderly, for all of them, and then did the formula to average out the assessment, which came out to $100,000, which is the total amount of taxes on that was going to be $300,180. And if you look on further down to the left, it's going to have the different code that income less than 20,000 was a 187. Both credits do not cover the increase. There was 47 applicants. And then the last is married couples, 75 applicants, and the single household was 434. To the right, I did 3 projections at 4.9%, 12.5%, and 25, and it will show you exactly what will not be collected due to being frozen, and those numbers do increase. The other the sheet that I handed you was just a little net impact of what this total 509 increase across the applicant pool was, that 34,433. We broke it down into the increased tax due. It's got the number of applicants, which averaged 71%, decreased tax due, 147 applicants at 29%, the extremely low income at 20,000, 187 applicants at 37%. Then it listed single income households, 434, and married households at 75. Have any other question?
Commissioner Cockey.
Tax relief, are we held to the 37 for whatever number? Can we increase that?
You talking about what the county will match? Are you talking about
to qualify
the
for tax relief?
yeah.
No, that's a state program. They set the amount. We have nothing.
We can't go over that. Okay.
No.
See. All right. Any other questions for her while he's coming across? All right.
I think I want this more to go to Commissioner Boutwell. I know he's compassionate with the schools. What kind of negative impact is this going to have on our school system, fire, other divisions, especially
Roads.
the school system?
Roads. Yeah, I heard that. Can you come to, or do you want to speak to the? That's sort of a. You might need to come back up there and clarify that question, because to me that question is loaded. But
I think also I'd need to research that, but I could, or Tim Harwell could come to the next commission meeting with that information. But I do, can I make a motion?
You sure can. Well, we need to finish up discussion if we probably got it backwards, but if you could let them speak, then we'll let you do your motion.
I was a little bit confused when Tanya said that we couldn't put more toward tax relief than what the state allowed, but I just asked Tanya, and she said we can fund tax relief more, and you addressed that, Tanya. That's your department.
We can't touch the income cap.
No.
We can't control
We
who
can't-
qualifies, but
No.
we can contribute more to their tax relief.
Yes, but we have to go by this 38,470
Yeah.
for the cap on the income
Yeah,
to
as far
qualify.
as their
and-
cap income, but we could put more toward more than that 37, whatever it is.
Well, what we're doing, and I think we're talking
Even
about
though
two
the
different.
state says, hey, we'll fund tax relief at this level right here. If the county wants to put more in that, we can't.
County can do what, yeah.
Right.
we
We're,
can do
we're
anything.
currently matching the state's contribution to relief.
Yes.
We can't add people to the program because they're on the cap, but the people that are on the program, Comptroller's office said we can give up to 100% of what their taxes actually are. They just cannot make a profit.
And you got that paper probably earlier on where it showed every 95 counties, because some will do $50, $40 a set amount, some will do 100%, some are doing 150%. So the county can choose whatever they want to pay out due to budget.
Right, Commissioner Yawkey.
So I think I asked you this on this new appraisal that was just done. I think I said, Tanya, about how much on our tax relief people did that increase their taxes? And I think you just now said 30-something, 35 or
Yeah,
something
and that's
like
why
that.
I give you this little net impact
Right.
on it. Because
So-
the full total 507 applicants that's on the program, there was 34,433 for his increase in taxes over that 509.
So hypothetically, whenever we did anything, a new appraisal, a new tax increase, we could make up the difference to those people with an increase in our other side of the
And-
state. Yeah,
And that's why
contribution.
I broke this out, and that's why you're seeing the increased tax due, how many, the decrease. I broke it kind of out in groups so y'all could look at that, because that is a budgeted number, and we still we're at a good place.
Right. Okay. Now, go after it.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to send it back to the commission with the fiscal note that is attached that Mr. Daniel did for us. But I do think we need to note that this fiscal note is based on the 43,000, not the 63. The 63 would be double.
And no operating expenses, simply personnel. Do you accept that?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, motion second. We're open for discussion there. We're still going to let you speak because he's got the question. All right, we're okay there? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed to that? Okay, so it'll be going back to them with what we just said. Okay? All right, now, Commissioner Boutwell, and then we're going to wrap up with you.
You asked about schools, and I just love to talk about schools. For some reason, I don't know why. I think I'm trying to atone for being a poor student. In the presentation that I made to the school board recently, and then which was covered in the local newspaper, and not talking on per student numbers, we're just talking on raw total numbers, and over a 10-year period, with the most recent period being fiscal year ending 2025, the school system, when you adjust for inflation, what they receive from the county in 2025, when adjusted for inflation, we received less total dollars from the county than we did 10 years ago. So with that, income stream is really important. The availability of funds is really important to the schools. And so we've been getting we got less money than we did 10 years ago, but yet our population has grown in those 10 years. So you can do with that what you will.
All right, thank you for that. Are we ready to move on? The next item was budget. Now, actually, we're having a budget study session once we adjourn from here and take a little 5-minute recess. But is there anything this body needs to add or question before we do that? If not, there won't be anything else really to do. It was a placeholder on here in case there was any discussion that this body wanted to have before we go through it with everybody here so that they can hear and we can all debate and conversate. So is there any action needs to be done on at this time? Okay. All right. So we're ready for other business. Was there any other business? We did not add anything to the agenda. Announcements. Was there anything to announce? Of course, again, right after this, we're going to have budget study session. And I would suggest that we take a 5-minute recess and once we adjourn, and then we'll come right into that meeting. Is that acceptable to everybody? All right. All right. Okay, 5 minutes, guys. Guys and gals, if y'all get back to some kind of composure here, we'll see if we can talk about the budget structure and what we got in front of us tonight. Now, this isn't actually an action or where we can take action. This is just study session for us, so we don't have to call it to order any of that tonight. But we'll take comments from the audience, questions. Our folks are looking at it. Robert's going to go over the kind of the summary of how we kind of laid things into this structure, but obviously it's a working document at the moment, so things could be changed, evolved, twisted, suggested, moved around. So we'll let Robert start so we have a foundation.
Okay, we've got a draft behind the budget request highlights. Now, that draft will probably change, depends on what's done tonight, but I'm going to go through some of the highlights for you. The first one is the budget includes an annual step for full-time employees at 4% cost of living adjustment. This includes salary for elected officials per the state minimum schedule. The judge is 2.7%, all other elected officials are 2.63. Number 2 is the election budget includes the cost of 2 elections. Number 3, the county buildings budget is $100,000 for the estimated bell tower renovation and $250,000 for the elevator refurbish, and this is to be paid from courthouse renovation, which is a restricted fund balance. And that may actually run more than that, but the elevator is about to die in the old courthouse. Budget also includes $55,000 estimated cost to demolish the old juvenile detention building. And we have an increase in building repair cost of $7,000, I'm sorry, of $30,000. And then we have $7,000 as an increase in utility cost. The number 4 is property assessor budget includes $10,000 for an appeals attorney. Number 5 is the reappraisal budget's requesting 2 new field positions, and we've got an estimated amount and a vehicle. These are not included in our draft at the moment. Number 6, the IT budget includes $10,000 for overtime and a 10% increase in software cost, including Microsoft 365. I think this overtime was requested by the commission at one point. Number 7, the sheriff's budget includes funding for $7,000 increase in vehicle repairs, $8,000 increase for prisoner transportation, $10,000 cost for the SRO conference, it's no longer funded by schools. ERAD investigative solution software is included, $6,950. There's a $4,000 merit stipend for a grant position. $2,750 increase in class or school travel, $10,000 increase in inmate clothing due to the increase in the population. Requested but not included, 4 deputies, and you got an estimated amount, $302,000. 1 detective at $78,896. Number 8 is the EMA budget includes $2,000 increase in building repairs, $1,000 increase in gasoline, $500 increase in uniforms, $1,500 increase in utilities. Included in 178, which is our capital projects fund, is $100,000 in equipment for TACAN and a $44,000 drone. And I think Scott has talked about that previously. The drone has got Chinese components that we can't replace. Requested but not included, 1 additional person of approximately $70,200. The fire department budget includes an $1,800 increase in the communications cost, $2,000 increase in fuel, $2,500 increase in the cost of office supplies to upgrade computers. Not included is a $90,000 volunteer firefighter pay, 6 additional firefighters plus uniforms, in-service benefits, TCRS contributions to volunteers, $70,000 service truck replacement, and $1.1 million for a Class A pumper. Okay, the truck we had originally in the draft, and it needs to be taken out because we're moving it to another spot. Right, Lori? Okay. Next, animal control is requested, but it's not included. 1 full-time animal control officer, $44,450 plus the matching benefits. EMS budget includes an annual budget for the remount. Requested but not included is a mechanic part-time to full-time. That would cost us $10,820 base plus the $9,915 matching benefits. Miscellaneous, the budget includes increases in the annual audit fee, autopsy fees, workers' comp, building, and contents insurance. We were given an estimate recently that our insurance is going up 8%. Budget includes mayor's request of $100,000 for elderly low-income tax relief program. Next is the highway fund. The budget includes an annual step increase for full-time employees, a 4% cost of living adjustment. And the official will be getting the state minimum requirement. Our capital projects fund number 178. This is a transfer from debt service to the capital projects. That's all you can use it for if you do the transfer out. So we have fire, $504,000 for an engine, $25,000 for TACAN radios. EMA will have TACAN for $100,000, drone for $44,000, and a forklift of $50,000 for their new building. We need a forklift because they are the only place in the county we can unload stuff at a bay. None of the other buildings have a bay that we can unload large trucks at. Countywide fueling station system, this is an estimate of $500,000. We will have this narrowed down shortly, but we're trying to get estimates of how much that will be, but that's kind of a ballpark of what we think it's going to end up at. The highway building and equipment of $2 million. He's tearing down the old building and he's going to build a new building and get some large equipment. And I'm going to announce this for Mark, but he's agreed to do an MOU with the county, and the money that he was going to use to pay this back is going to go toward paving over the life of that loan that we had. We've had several discussions with the comptroller about how to do that. And really this is really the best choice. We can go out and borrow the money and pay interest. We tried to do an interfund loan, then we found out we couldn't do that because he has to have a required balance in his fund to do it. So this was our third option, which was probably the best option. Next is debt service. This is a transfer from debt service to the county capital projects fund, and I mentioned most of that above. Transfer from debt service to school capital projects fund. This is for student computers, $2 million, buses, $700,000, TCAT renovation, $2 million, capital projects, $500,000, but there's a carryover, a minimum carryover from the prior year of a $500,000 because they were needing $1 million. Last page, what is not included. And some of this is a rehash, but reappraisal, 2 field positions, $150,000, a vehicle of $45,000. We did, and number 2 is the sheriff and jail. They wanted 4 deputies, not included, and 1 detective. Number 3 is EMA, additional personnel, $70,200, not included. Fire, $90,000 for volunteer firefighter pay, 6 firefighters. TCRS contributions for volunteers, $70,000 for a service truck replacement, $1.1 million for a Class A pumper. EMS, mechanical part-time to full-time, and that's $10,820 plus benefits of $99,515. Animal control, 1 full-time animal control officer, $44,450, plus the $14,237 matching benefits.
Okay, now, and also what's not reflected in there, if we do go with tax freeze, the trustee's office, although it was not in her original request, obviously if you adopt tax freeze, she's gonna have to have that position. And so that's somewhere in the $57,950 range just for for 1 position. So keep that in mind. Again, it's not in the budget officially at the moment, but at the time, it wasn't clear what was going on, so she did not pre-request it as the assessor's office went ahead and made the assumption that if it passed, they wanted to make sure they had the request in there. So if it did not pass, I would also tell you that we would be excusing 1 of the 2 positions for the assessor's office. They had asked for 2, but 1 was specifically for tax freeze. So if tax freeze did not go forward, then there would be 1 that we would be relieved from actually trying to necessarily fund this year.
Okay, the next item that I think we need to discuss first, we got to talk about the nonprofit organizations. So I'll leave that for you guys to discuss.
Okay, a couple of things that I want to make a comment, and then this body certainly can do some coaching, directing on what they want to do there. In that first categories, when you get to, let's see, the skills development, we had been given 6,000. They asked for 7,000. Nobody came this year. And so it has been our position, if you don't come, we don't necessarily fund any additional. So we may want to consider putting that back at the 6, not taking away what they're getting, but not necessarily giving them new there. Another one that stood out to me, the public library had done a miscalculation from our math as to how much 10% would have been from what we were giving them. And so instead of it being 30,919, if we do 10% of the 199,437, the number would be somewhat smaller. So I think that's worth considering. We'll see what this body wants to do. I would tell you that the Shovel Bedford Partnership has been converted to be the Chamber of Commerce. My recommendation there would be that we go to the membership concept. I believe the city of Shelbyville did this as well, which would be $20,000. And so we would move to push that down into the chamber and zero out the partnership line. But if we have the ability to do it, we'd like to set aside the difference in the Economic Development Fund so that the commission at a later date, should there be a project or a particular economic development concept that they would want to work with, you would have the funds available to do that. But it would come out of the nonprofit, so it'd no longer be a contribution to the Shovel Bedford Partnership in regards to that. Fire was keeping them at the $2,500 increase, and the Tony Rice Center did not send anyone but requested $3,000. We have not contributed to them in multiple years, and so if you go with they didn't present and we didn't give to them last year, you would withdraw that one. And if you stay with the concept we've had about not adding new nonprofits, the Cooking with the Veterans for $1,200 would come off of there. Now, I would suggest that if folks like his programs are typically events that they choose to do, they could always come back to the commission later and ask for an event to be considered, just like what we're doing with the Juneteenth for the Gillian House. I'm not saying you would approve it or disapprove it, but what I'm saying is even if it doesn't make the cut of the list here, it doesn't mean that there wouldn't be another opportunity or avenue for it to be requested at a later date and considered by the commission and the new Financial Management Committee when that time comes. So that's the only things that kind of jumped out to me, but whatever this body thinks or wants to tweak beyond that, we're prepared to make those corrections, again, so that we can then send the budget books out to the commission for further discussion.
I would like to add too that the fire department has requested a building note, and what that is we borrow the money and they just pay us back out of their contribution. They've done that for the Rover Fire Department, I believe, and that's helped them a lot because they've been going out and getting a capital note with their own names. So they're signing the note, and that's really not fair to anyone. It should be the county. And we have some office space that is being donated, and we've assigned a value to that, so you can see that down at the bottom down there.
Okay, so we're open for conversation. Commissioner Yockey.
When we've met with the nonprofits, we've been pretty upfront with them that they must send in their information to Robert, budgeting and anything else that he's requested. And they must appear before this body. And so my flavor on that one is if they don't appear, then they get what they had. As far as anybody new, we have not brought any new ones on. I think maybe CASA was the last one. Brought no one new on unless they served and were promoted and backed by the judicial system or the education system, so that there was some crossover if the judges wanted this as part of programs. So I think that takes care of itself. And on the library, I'm a little bit squeamish on this because they did appear before us, and I can't remember the details of what she wanted, but they had valid arguments on it.
Yeah, and
so-
Robert has the comments in regards to actually what she said. So
When they did their request, they said they wanted 10% more than last year, but they had the wrong number for last year. They had getting more than what we actually paid them. So we went back to what we actually paid them and increased it 10%.
But that is about a $10,000 difference between what the document they submitted number reflected.
Okay.
But it is the increase percent-wise that they had asked for, correct?
Stay with that.
It is corrected in this document.
Yes, can you come to the mic?
On the events, so are we opening this up to other nonprofits on events?
Not necessarily. Again, that's a decision that have to be made by the administration, the finance committee, and really would have to go on to the commission to, if it's not budgeted, then it would be an amendment and would have to be approved. Is that right? Sure.
Some of the events we've done have been with governmental entities like War Trace, Bell Buckle, City of Shelbyville.
Right.
They're not considered a nonprofit. A nonprofit's a 501c3, and we have to have a resolution in that case.
Okay, but what, the way I was reading it with an event with Cooking for Veterans, that was an event. And if you start doing that, that would flood your tourism budget.
We would still have to get a resolution if we decided to do that as
Okay.
an event, because he's a 501c3.
Okay, because there's a lot of nonprofits that's doing a lot of events, so,
Cor-
okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm not advocating you do that, but I'm just simply clarifying the air that there are other avenues they could potentially re-petition to the commission for consideration.
So
But-
is
but-
there a policy of how to proceed to
Well,
the
they'd have to come to the
commission?
finance committee. I'd talk to the
Okay.
administration, whoever that is, and then on to the finance
Okay.
committee. But it may not go beyond that because, again, you're gonna have to be careful about the precedents that you set. Only
That's
what
what
we've
I'm
done
concerned about,
has
setting
been
a
with other
precedent.
governments.
Yeah.
This is, the Juneteenth is the only one that I'm aware of that we have contributed separate to.
Okay, because I just, you know, I'm
Correct.
concerned about setting a precedent.
Wise to be thinking.
Because there's a lot of events happening. Okay, thank you.
And lots of nonprofits that would like to be on our list. We hear from them regularly and understood. And they're all great causes, but there has to be some, you gotta have some pecking order or some structure for that. Again, that's why we wanted to verbally talk about how we were processing what we're looking at, because you may want the structure to be different in the future, but you need to understand at least what we've been doing up to now and how we arrived at that, so. Yeah, you wanna come to the?
My question goes back to before we were talking about the budget, just real quick. Do we do anything for the volunteer fire? I know volunteer, that says it, but do they get any kind of like insurance or anything from us? Do we do anything?
Yeah, we need to let Mark, because there's some uniqueness to the volunteer part of it. But of course, we do contribute money to them through the nonprofit structure as well.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll be happy to answer any questions on that. But in my budget, we also carry a insurance policy. So they're covered under workers' comp, but workers' comp doesn't give them a paycheck because they're not drawing a check from the county. So we carry an additional insurance policy. So if they get hurt on a fire, then they will get a paycheck based on their current income. It's not a full check, and it'll pay their medical bills along with the workers' comp that we carry. So that's about the only benefit that we get, and that's through the Steve Frost Agency, and I think we're somewhere around 7,000, somewhere in that neighborhood that we pay every year for that. And how we arrived at that was we had one that fell off a roof and broke his arm, and there was no income, and then the county decided we would do that policy for them, but that's the only income they get. Now, the county makes contributions, that takes care of their upkeep on their buildings and their trucks, pays their utilities and things like that.
Right, and because what we learned out of that deal, obviously, if they got hurt in the line of duty, our workman's comp kicked in and paid the medical bills and the things, but the workman's comp's what, 66 2/3 of your income from the county, and a volunteer doesn't have income. So their real jobs that they stepped away from to help us that night, now they're out for 6 or 8 weeks, and so that's where this policy helps bridge that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, but definitely a good question, because we're struggling to get volunteers in all capacities, and certainly high-risk emergency stuff, so, all right, yeah, yes, Commissioner, I'm sorry, School Superintendent.
Yes, okay, I support all of your decisions on the first page. I need clarification on the economic and community development. I did find where that 80,000 moved over. Who manages that budget? Which department is that under? Is that under the mayor's department?
You want to speak to where it went? It would have to come to this body for recommendation and on to the commission. It'd have to be an amendment to get it out of there. Do you agree with that? Yeah. You, right, which is what we do with the hotel motel tax. Now, the things that we pre-stipulate, like the fireworks, the Christmas, the things that we do, then they can transfer out of there without action. But if it's just a request for something that wasn't budgeted, we can't write a check out of the revenue account. It has to move to expenditure account to be spent. So it will have to go through the structure to be gotten out. That's the way I envisioned we were doing. That's correct, right? Yeah.
You know, the commission would have to decide if they want to spend that or not.
Correct.
And this body and then eventually the commission would have to be explained to whatever it is all about.
Right, whatever the project that was
So
being put
It's not just
forward.
one person somewhere deciding. we're gonna
Correct.
do
This,
it.
right, and you would assume it would come to this body because it's, the financial component would be what they're asking for, but that ultimately then is on to the commission for debate or approval to, agree to the program that they're trying to put forward or the project or whatever it would be at that time. But otherwise, all that really is doing is just, it's over there, should the county think that there's a worthy project that's economic development oriented, there would be a revenue source there to be able to deal with it, but it doesn't mandate that they actually expend it.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna bring up one more thing about the solid waste budget since we're getting to the close of it. If everyone looked at that, I bumped it up 25,000 in the diesel fuel line. And I'm sure all the department heads and everybody, I'm sure everybody's already been running numbers about what we think this is gonna be, but our fuel cost for the highway and solid waste, it has doubled from what we paid in April or March. It doubled into April, and April is doubling into May so far. If this persists, let's just say for 6 months into the new budget, even with that $25,000 that I've added to there, which put that diesel budget at $100,000, even though we're gonna be going here, we're not gonna be traveling over there. With those prices moving, I would like to ask if we could find another at least 25,000 to put in there to where we can be safe, because there, in the solid waste budget, there is no what I call fluff that can be adjusted by the budget amendment. It's gonna be new money you have to go in there, cause there is no where to move that money.
Right, your gallon consumption is going to be there, we just don't know what we're paying per gallon. But Robert, we've talked about that, and Robert will explain what we're planning.
We are gonna set aside some money that's not in an individual department for fuel, because that way we can adjust it as we need to, but we don't know either is how much it's gonna go to. But we have set aside, I think Lori can give us the amount.
And again, if this is a problem, this will be a problem for everybody. It won't be unique to your department or fire or EMS or any of them. And again, it's another reason why we need a fueling station as well, because again, we continue to see there can be disruptions, although we haven't really experienced them. So all these things are playing into the long vision that's been worked on, and we're a lot closer now to that model.
All right,
Yeah,
well, thank you.
without a fueling station, we can also be subject to theft, so this is one way we can prevent some of that. We're gonna have software that would hopefully have a ring on the tank, and that fuel will not be pumped into there unless that ring is there. So they can't take it, open the trunk up and fill up 5-gallon cans. And I think somebody may have seen that at one point.
Yeah, and talking about the fueling station, we're talking there, the highway department, since it's gonna be setting it at our location, I think is what we've come up with, but we think we may have another location. But when that fueling station comes in, what the highway department and myself wanna do is take our tanks that we're using there, which is about 9,000 gallons that we have, and let those be for extra fuel that's sitting there. So if we was to get slow or low on fuel, or we have a catastrophe of some kind, we do have fuel that we can keep moving and going forward.
I think the plans are to have two 10,000-gallon tanks, and they'll be split. So you'll have 5,000 of diesel in one and 5,000 of gas in one, and then you'll have another tank same way, and you'll have two pumping stations, one on each side of those tanks. And that way buses can fill up, road equipment can fill up, sheriff can fill up, but it's going to allow, our software would allow us to build that department so they get an actual usage.
Yeah, and fire, when we looked at the design
Yeah,
and stuff,
fire too.
it's set up for y'all's pumpers to pull in there where you're not having to be impeded by anything.
Is from Rover to your place out here, the county maintenance, that's roughly 16 miles that I'll be driving here. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, when a volunteer's been out there fighting fire, he's got to drive all the way into Shovel, fuel up, and then drive back home. That's some of my concerns. And I think if we sit down, we can figure out a solution for it. But we do fill gas cans for our chainsaws, blowers, weed eaters, whatever we use on grass fires. These small little fire pumps that we have in the back of trucks, they have a boat tank in them that we have to fill up. They're anywhere from 2.5 to 5 gallons. On our tools, we run the high-grade gas because it saves us in carburetors. We've tried the ethanol gas, and it just heats our tools up. Some of them we have swapped over to battery-operated. So I think we're going to have to sit down and work out some details on the fire side of it, and I don't know about the rest of the departments.
We actually have fuel tanks at some of the outlying schools
Okay.
where they fill up, and you wouldn't be expected to come in town because we have a card system that we've been using, so you can
Yes.
fill up outside. And when I was talking about people filling gas tanks, it wasn't county vehicles. It was.
Yeah, okay.
So no perfect system. Anything man can devise, man can cheat, right? So, but again, we're just trying to have accountability, and again, it's an important, really operational, to have some residual and resilience in fuel, which is something we do not. And we have had interruptions in fuel even at the county government level not that many years ago. And so again, this just helps take care of that. Are we at a moving on point with nonprofits? Everybody kind of understands how we've arrived where we are? Okay.
Can I go back?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the budget requested part, on the very back sheet, not included.
Okay, yeah, we were gonna talk about that next.
So when Robert fixes a budget, that budget is not going to include these that time, right?
That's correct.
So, we look at all these positions that are needed, and our volunteer fire part, and our, not any of these is unimportant. I guess it's where I'm saying, so when you do the budget, how do we look at that if we wanted to do some of these also?
We would add it in, and then we'd have to take it from the fund balance that we have set aside, which is pretty tight. So if you can't do that, the only other option you have is to raise taxes or cut something.
Right, and again, it's sort of like the box. You could take something out if you put something in, if you didn't want to add to it. Yeah, this was I wouldn't say easier point, but this is the elephant in the room, and this is where we're ready to now talk about that in regards to, we simply did not add any positions to any of them till this body starts to gnaw on that a little bit and think about what it's going to take to just continue to operate what you're doing. And right now, the tax rate of the 150 certified is projecting to generate, that's so that you got an idea what the certified tax rate is generating versus what we have in here, and then we talk about what's not in and how we can do that.
We have a new tax rate in the county general. It's 92 cents. It went from 143 to 92. A penny generates 214,500. Last year was 135,000. So assessments went up, but the rate went down. And the only reason there's an increase is because of property that was added last year that was not under that new assessment. Right. So growth money. That's about 3 or 4 pages over. I'm sorry we don't have these numbered, but this was a draft, and we were doing our best just to get you a draft today. So
Right, so with everything in that we've talked about, except the things that we clearly at the moment said personnel is not in, what does it look like that generates as a fund balance for starting conversation?
Or you may have that number quicker than I can find it.
Right, and last year our fund balance was, when we started, was in what range? Do you remember? Okay,
So if we receive more revenue, it's going to increase our fund balance over what we budgeted. And then if we spend it less than the budget, that's going to increase fund balance also. But we just try to give you an amount as a starting point because that's all we can do at the moment. Now, after the year's closed and the audit's done, we typically have an add back.
Right, and obviously we're trying to be a little bit conservative with those numbers. And again, thinking about sales tax, which is part of the monies we appreciate when the economy shutters, and we're shuttering a little bit with the fuel sucking the residual out, our sales tax within 90 days will start being less from the state. Property tax probably takes us another year before it might impact us or not with delinquency. So we can't rely too heavily on necessarily what sales tax could be in addition to the expected numbers in regards to this either. Again, this format and framework is what we've used every year, so nothing unique to that. We plug the numbers in. What's not in at the moment is personnel, and fund balances, for the sake of conversation, let's say $70,000, $80,000 is probably the number you're starting with at the moment.
Now, you might wonder, well, how do we deal with an emergency if it came up during the year? We have a 3% fund balance set aside, which we could draw from, but then we'd have to put it back the next year.
And schools do very similar, and have restricted funds and funds that have to go to specific areas, and state and federal money. We don't unfortunately get as much state and federal money as you do, but same concept again in that. So the conversation tonight, next step I think naturally from that is he's told us that a penny is probably worth about $214,000. We know the certified tax rate that the state says our starting point was $1.50 and whatever the decimal or the 234 number on the end or whatever it is there, and we know based on that, plugging in the stuff we've talked about, not including new positions, puts us at about $70,000, $80,000 worth of fund balance. So now to start talking about personnel, we either need to think about what we might dip in and take out from what we currently have or do, or how we would look to mitigate the increased amount. I mean, the revenue is basically going to come from property tax or sales tax. That's your two main. I mean, you have other grants and things that come in and out, but that's our two main sources. And again, we don't have control over sales tax, and we may even lose some sales tax in the future. And so property tax is really where it lands for county government. And that's not unique to Bedford. That's true of all of them across the state of Tennessee.
And actually, we did not increase sales tax as far as our budget. We looked at what we actually collected this year and used the same amount next year. Yeah, we don't. I don't want to increase it because if the economy drops, then we're hurting, and that happened in the past. We had a negative growth, so that could happen again with this gas issue.
Right, and now the comptroller's office reviews these budgets in the end, and so if we were to be clever and say, well, let's just raise what we're projecting for sales tax or property tax or delinquent rates or any of those things, they're going to review that, and if that doesn't actually compute to the trends, they're going to push back on that. Is that correct?
They wouldn't approve our budget.
Right. So we can't just say, well, we're surely going to do better than we did last year and just plug that in. We got to know that we got more than one way to cross-reference how we would pay it back.
Don't forget, too, that we've got a lawsuit pending out there to defund education. That's like $2 million a year. So
I
we need to
understand it's
consider
even
that too.
more than that now. It's like 2.8 or something. I think Mr. Blevins told me that.
Well, thank you for the correction. 2.7 million.
Right, and it's reoccurring, so keep that in mind too. It's not one time that we gotta find, or in theory, if we lost, we would need to find 2 million and then it would be behind us. That would be continuing going forward, correct.
Before we go on with the general fund, I wanted to mention there's a drug fund. It's the blue paper behind it. That's their budget. There's no real changes there. And the green paper is 131, which is the road fund. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Then the salmon colored page is debt service, and that was the fund that would be affected by that $2.7 million. And then the last one is the yellow sheet is the school capital projects, and the white sheet's the county capital projects. So I just wanted to let you know those are in there. This is a draft. If you see anything you think you might want to change, you can let us know, and we'll see if we can incorporate it. But we've gone through all the revenues, looked at the projections, and tried to be conservative, but also we tried to use as much as we could. Like the penny, for instance, I used a 4% delinquency, which is better than what we have. We're not at 4%. We're actually coming in better than that. But still, you got to be conservative on it, because in the past we've had it up at around 6%.
Now, I was just, before you came in, I was trying to do some quick math, and people were coming in, and I'm easily distracted. But I calculated if we added all the positions that we've not added in yet, with the benefits of them, again, unless I've made a calculated error, that looks like to me that's about $1.2 million. And then if you divide 214,500 into that, it looks like to me that's about 5.5-cent tax increase if you were to just outright absorb that and not cut anything. I'm not advocating that you raise taxes, but I'm trying to put in perspective for you what it looks like revenue-wise to offset for that. Commissioner Neely.
Noticed here on the line 9 on that first page, it's account 47,000 is the federal government, and that one has dropped by well over $4 million. Why is that one dropped so?
That is ERA money, isn't it? And we're not getting that anymore, so.
So that's technically not county money. Okay, I was just curious because it was such a big drop.
And if you see the school side, you'll see that same thing occurring there. Some of their grants are not there like they were in the past. So what we'll do is we'll try to take into consideration these discussions and have a new draft. We plan on a budget book at the next commission meeting to pass out, and then we'll have another work session after that.
Right, but you should have enough information now to start making some conclusions of your own. You know now the penny value, you know what the current certified tax rate is, you know what we put in the budget, you know what we left out of the budget, and we've put a pretty close number to what each of those positions are going to cost you with pay and benefits if you add them in. Now, again, it's not to say that there couldn't be some model that takes something out to try to soften it, but if you were just simply talking about staying with where you are with about the $70,000 fund balance, everything in but the positions, and then you laid them in, it looks like to me, if I'm just talking straight math, we're talking about 5.5, maybe 6 cents to do that math. And that would then bring them all in. Now, again, this is not anything associated with schools. Schools set separate, and really highways do. And they have revenue sources in some ways, but they also have to have support from us on their sides. So again, let's keep in mind that we're talking about the county budget, county general budget, not necessarily schools or highways when we're talking about these things. So there's no question, it's a delicate balance to continue to manage growth And because when you think about positions, a lot of that is directly related to growth or new expectation put on the model. I mean, it's really one of the two. And so we've done a pretty good job through growth monies to kind of absorb inflation and cost of living increases and step raises. We've been doing those each year without having to adjust the tax rate to do it. And how we've done that is because growth money has come along to help balance that. But we're at a crossroads now with the tax rate reset, all the growth we have, and the new things and we passed on actually making some of the investments we wanted to in public safety the last few years. We passed on fire more than once, and so we have on law enforcement, if I remember correctly, because we just simply didn't feel that we were in a position to do what we needed to do, and the growth was not totally actually here, but they're all working at capacity with their ratios. There's national standards and best practices for the number of firefighters, for the people you're serving, and how far away they are from them. Same's true for law enforcement, EMS, and all those standards. And we strive, and we have for the last 8 years that I've been here, and surely they did before me as well. But we've strived to meet national standards and best practices, and we're not overperforming anywhere, guys. And so anything we cut is going to be a further reduction in the service we provide. Now, again, we can't tax the public to death either. I mean, so there's got to be some balance to that. Everybody in this room is gnawing and thinking about how do we freeze tax, cut tax, do away with tax, anything we can do to not tax. But it is a component of operating the county government. We have no other revenue sources or streams as a county government. And again, it's not unique to Bedford. This is true across the state. The Mayor's Association is battling this regularly about where we pick up additional revenue. Cities potentially get them from other components, not just sales tax, but they get the lion's share of the sales tax because they're where the bulk of retail happens. And so 50% of sales tax stays with where it's collected. The county collects very little sales tax that is just ours. That's basically the Dollar General stores and the few mom and pop stores that are outside the incorporated areas. That's the only place we're getting true sales tax for us to reinvest back in the community. The 50% is collected in Bell Buckle, Wartrace, Normandy, and the city of Shelbyville. They keep that 50. Now, the other goes to education, but that's just a drop in the bucket to what it costs to educate. As we know, we fall short there as it is. So it doesn't matter who sits in this seat. They're going to have this same delicate balance that this team has walked this, and this commission has lived this. But it's not getting any easier. It's getting trickier every day, and people want to clamp down and tighten down further, and I get it, and let's do that where we can. But again, if we're not meeting national standards and best practices, if we're not overperforming in any particular department, name the department where we're overperforming, then if we cut anything, we're going backwards. I mean, I don't know how you could explain that otherwise. But we can't tax people to death, and we've passed on some hard decisions. We may have to find ourselves making some decisions here that we're not comfortable with. But where we're at tonight is, I think, just leave you guys knowing none of these new positions are in the model that we currently have it built. But we're going to be coming back. We've got to come back and act on them in the next meetings. Is there any questions or comments that this group want to make? And I'll make sure they don't want before we okay.
I wanted to mention the schools have passed their budget, and it will be in that budget book. So that is the one the Board of Education passed.
Okay. Yeah.
It does include a 5% raise for all staff. That's really the only difference over last year. We did not add any new positions or anything because we knew we're in the same shape with the low fund balance. And so I like the fact that you didn't put those in this budget because the school did not either. And if you remember, we had a mandate that we had to at least do a little over 4% to get to the minimum salary of $50,000. This was the last year that we had to do that. So, and it's been a long time, but since the schools, probably more than 2 decades, Robert, that we've had an increase in our operating budget in the school system. And so it's been a long time that we've made do. We have had money in the, debt services and borrowed money for schools, but the actual operating budget has not increased in a long time.
Right. And again, I think your model reflects ours as well, and that is we we were able to continue to move forward because of growth money, but we're all seeing growth money slow. It's not going away, but it's slowing. And so that growth money is really how we were managing, taking care of what we currently do, not adding new services, not doing the new things that you ought to do, need to do the national standards for. This is just trying to continue to provide the service you provide. And the growth money is slowing. We're seeing it on our side. They've seen it on their side. And that's going to get even more tricky in the next year or two if the trends continue. It's not unique to Bedford. We're seeing it across the state. And probably across the country as well, but Tennessee is where I'm zeroed in on, trying to figure out how we keep this fragile balance in place. Is there anything else this group wants? All right, any of you guys in the audience, any question or clarification or something maybe I said that you didn't understand about the budget structure? Again, no action here tonight and not in or out, but right behind this, Robert will have at the commission meeting the budget books that will have the numbers in and everything, where we'll be able to direct you specifically where to look for your questions and answers.
So will we have a study session after we have the books? Can we
Yes.
set that up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to, because again, that's not the absolute till this body votes to send it to the commission.
We'll probably have to have a study session. Hopefully, the finance committee can pass something at that time or recommend something. Then we'll have a special call meeting of the commission to approve the budget closer to the end of the month of June.
Okay, any questions up here on my group? All right, what about in the audience? Okay, thank you guys for being here with us. This one, again, wasn't one we had to adjourn because there was no action here. Thank you.